Hi everyone, so today I am making a video about how I care for curly doll hair. More so like reforming curls that have been matted and dreaded. So the number one thing I want to stress in this video is that different dolls have different hair types. Even if they're two of the same doll, like say two Island Fun Barbies, they might have different hair types. So for this technique, it is kind of important that you learn a bit about which type of hair your doll has, because what I'm going to show you won't work for every hair type, but there are obviously ways to care for those hair types too. So typically on dolls, there are three main hair types. I talk about them at the beginning of my boil wash tutorial. There's nylon doll hair, Kanekalon doll hair, and saran doll hair. So when it comes to this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about nylon and saran because they respond to heat very similarly. So the difference between Kanekalon hair and these other two hair types is that Kanekalon hair is very responsive to heat. So if you're familiar with like most 90s Barbies or even a lot of present day Barbies, they have like very fluffy flyaway hair. It sheds very easily. This is also what American girls use. There are different grades of Kanekalon, but regardless of the grade, they all respond to heat the same way. So if you took like my Caroline Abbott doll, who is supposed to have very curly hair, and you dunked her in the boil wash, you're gonna see her curls like greatly reduce, maybe even go straight. And likewise with a Barbie from the 90s who has those big poofy waves, when you put her in the boil wash, that makes her hair go completely straight. However, when it comes to saran hair and nylon hair, they are a lot more heat resistant. So this means that you can keep their original hairstyle intact by boil washing it. So that's basically what I'm going to be showing you, how just sticking this doll's head in the boil wash will fix these matted curls in the back. Now Madison here, Jamin and Jamaica Madison, is not even the worst example of curly hair I have experienced. Growing up, I had a Mystery Squad Kenzie doll, and she had these same kind of like kinky nylon hair curls, like the very tight ones. And as a kid, from playing with her, it got matted like this, and I made the mistake of trying to brush it out, which was a disaster. It made her hair about 20 times its original size. It got really gross feeling and nasty, and I didn't think I'd be able to save it, but luckily I didn't cut it. So when I learned about the boil wash, I literally just dunked her in and scrunched her hair up, and the curls came back. Now obviously if your doll has really tortured looking hair, they're probably not going to end up looking really crisp and new like some of Madison's ringlets here. And the same thing kind of applies for saran hair. Now nylon is the most heat resistant hair type. That's usually the type I recommend you flat iron for, like if you're trying to get rid of frizz. So like if your doll has straight hair and it's very gross and frizzy, because it's just very non-responsive to like the boil wash. But saran hair, on the other hand, you can't flat iron it usually because it burns. However, boil washing, you need a hotter temperature and for a longer period of time. And eventually, if you do enough hot boil washes and the water's just warm enough, you can straighten out the hair or curl the hair, whatever you're trying to do. Whereas that's a bit harder with nylon. But it takes a lot more to ruin the curls on a saran hair doll. So dolls with like really curly saran hair that this has worked on, if you know the Island Fun Barbie line from the 80s, they have very curly hair. It's like basically like this, but it's saran. I've shown this on my Island Fun Miko doll in one of my transformation videos, and I've done this on all three of my Island Fun Barbies countless times because they live in storage most of the time, so their curls get a little bit, you know, matted from storage, and it always looks really nice. Their hair is very shiny, so this technique works great on saran hair too. So like I said, you do want to kind of figure out what hair type is what. So saran hair, you'll see it a lot on like the 2015, 2016 Bratz. You'll see it a lot on 80s Barbies. You don't see it on like Disney store dolls typically. It's in my opinion, the nicest hair type. It's the densest, the shiniest, and it almost feels a bit waxy, but it tangles super easy. Whereas, like I said, Kanekalon hair is fluffy, and the fibers are super thin, and if you try to put it in hot water, or even if you just wash it sometimes, then the style comes out, and it sheds a lot. Now, nylon hair, there's different grades of nylon hair, but generally speaking, like the nasty stuff, like what Madison has, you can see here that it's like stretched. This isn't shedding, this is just like stretching. That's what happens a lot with the nylon hair. It stretches and it tends to get really frizzy and dry at the bottom, and the more you brush it, the frizzier and the drier it gets. So that's why I always flat iron my nylon hair dolls, unless they're like Madison and they're super kinky. So for this, it's very, very easy. You're gonna need your doll with curly hair, and I'll give you a good close-up of Madison. I would have loved to have shown you guys on a doll with like really awful looking hair, but you can see underneath her hair is not the best. You're gonna want something, like if your doll is dirty, if your doll is clean, if like you don't want to wash her, you don't have to, but I got her at the Salvation Army, so we're washing her. I like to use dish soap to wash her hair, but you can use shampoo, and obviously you're gonna need conditioner. The step's very important, whatever kinds you want, and a wide tooth comb. Saran hair dolls, you're gonna get a better result if you brush through with the fine tooth comb after, but on Madison we're not touching the fine tooth comb because it's nylon, and because it's so kinky, it's just going to stretch and make a mess. And then I like to use diluted gel on my dolls. So this is just like 2 little squirts of gel in this bottle mixed up with water. And you're gonna need a bowl to do your boil washing. That's already in the microwave. So I'm gonna wash Madison first. So if your doll is secondhand, I really recommend, like always, no matter what you're doing, clean the body first, because you're gonna get like soap or baking soda or whatever you use to clean them in their hair anyways, so you might as well do the hair after. So I've washed Madison's body, and I also washed her hair twice, but I have not conditioned it yet. So it's mostly like her underneath layer that's pretty bad. So I like to use a pretty generous amount of conditioner on these curly like kinky hair dolls, because their hair is just so like dry and gross feeling. So I'm just gonna take my wide tooth comb. I'm just gonna like slowly start at the bottom here. And you can see from me combing it, A, she's shedding a lot, because that happens with this hair type, and B, it's getting bigger. But you can see I'm not having too much trouble. I'm not getting a lot of snarls. And I want to say I really wish I had known how to do this as a kid, because I had a first edition Madison doll. That was actually my very first Mycene doll, and I didn't know how to take care of her, so I dry brushed her hair, and then I cut it, and she got bald, because these Mycene dolls shed really easily, like the ones with the kinky hair. So now her hair is very big, but do not worry. I'm going to rinse her out really well. This hair holds on to product, so you'll want to make sure you rinse it really, really well. And I'm going to heat up the bowl in the microwave, and you want the water bubbling for sure. You don't want it like just before it bubbles. You want it really hot, because that's what's going to make all of these curls form again. So this water is really, really hot, and I rinsed her hair in warm water just by coincidence, and you can already see how much better it looks just from being rinsed in like hot tap water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place her hair in the boil wash. I don't know, for some reason I really like to just move them up and down. I don't really know if this helps. I'm like just gonna leave her in the bowl for a few minutes. And I also recommend that, like, sometimes I batch boil wash dolls. So normally if Madison was just like, you know, or had like regular not super thick hair, I would boil wash her with Tika and Stacy over here. But these dolls with really kinky curly hair should have a bowl on their own. They'll have more heat to themselves, because the more dolls you put in, the more they kind of like suck heat from each other. Is we're gonna get some cold water. You can put her in ice too if you want. And this is kind of like the part I find that really helps. If you just scrunch the hair up while you're rinsing it, and then once she's cooled off, you want to make sure that her parting is like all set. Then I'm going to take some diluted gel, and I'm going to put a lot on her. The more you put on these dolls, the better. Just make sure it's really diluted, because you don't want it to be sticky. And then I'm just going to scrunch it again. Now I do want to say, this is the kind of hair type that it's meant to be curly and big and kinky. So it's not going to be like each curl is 100% perfect, because that's just not how it's made to be. Whereas with saran hair, if you try this technique, the hair is going to look a lot smoother, but it's also not going to keep as nicely in storage. So now I'm going to go put her in front of a fan to dry. Never blow dry your dolls at all. It will burn them. So it is a little while later. Madison's all dry and back in her outfit. Excuse Andy in the background, he had a bath. And this is what her hair looks like. You can see her hair is really shiny. That's from the gel. And it's not frizzy. The ringlets are nicely defined. She looks really, really good. And I did trim off like the parts that I kind of stretched on the bottom. So like I said, this kind of hair, it's never going to look perfectly smooth because of the type of like fiber that it is. But this is really, really beautiful. It photographs really nicely. I'll insert some before and after pictures. I'm very pleased with the overall results of this. So I hope this video could help you guys out. Like I said, this only will work for dolls with saran hair or nylon hair. If you're working with Connectlon hair, if the hair is extremely frizzy and gross, the best thing to do is to boil wash the doll so their hair goes completely straight, because that'll get rid of any of the frizz and the kinks, and then to go back in with like rollers or straws or pipe cleaners and like recurl the hair that way and dunk it in the boil wash again. In the future, if I have like a doll that I want to boil wash the hair into curls, I will show you, but most of the time I just don't have the patience for curly Connectlon, so they just stay straight. But I will in the future. There's lots of tutorials on it though here on YouTube if you have a doll with Connectlon hair and you want to redo the curls on. But I hope this could help you with the really kinky, hard to manage hair type like nylon and saran. So until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.